Okay, so welcome everybody to Tuesday Toolbox Talk for February 2026. And today's topic is general health and well-being. By the end of this Toolbox Talk, you will have an insight into some of the causes of ill health and injury in the construction industry. You'll understand the preventative measures to reduce risk to health and well-being, and you'll understand your role in creating a health and safety culture. So this is over to you. What does it mean? What does general health mean? General ill health mean, rather?
Not taking care of your body.
Yeah. Which might lead to what?
Illness.
Yeah. What kind of illnesses might affect people that work in construction?
Physical.
Yeah. Anything else?
Mental.
Mental, yeah.
Physical and mental health, that's about it. I don't know.
Okay, so let's just narrow that down a little bit, because this is quite important that we have awareness of how the industry we work in, how it can affect us. Then as individuals, you can put safeguards in place to care for yourself and your own health. So think specifically, or it is an umbrella term, you're absolutely right, and you're all right in what you've said. It means it can affect you physically and it can affect you mentally. So if we think about physical issues in relation to construction, we can think about joints, particularly our spine, particularly knees, and maybe shoulders with vibration work, wrist joints and so on. We can think about respiratory conditions, and we know that this is a big issue in construction because we have our annual surveillance and our focus on respiratory protective equipment and face fit testing. It can lead to issues with our skin, such as dermatitis, and that can be related to some of the materials that are used, that you're exposed to in construction. Hearing problems, so this is because of the vibration works and the noise, and this is why you wear ear defenders. And slips, trips and falls, so if the site is hazardous and you're put at risk, you could have a life-changing injury because you fall off a ladder or you slip or you trip. So these are really important things to be aware of. And then you've all quite rightly identified there's a mental health issue that needs to be taken very seriously, because if our mental health is impaired, that can also manifest itself in a physical presentation. So we need to be aware of how this is a broad term, but it links to very specific things, and this helps shape how we look after operatives within the construction environment, such as wearing PPEs, wearing ear defenders. So what can impact on health and well-being? And I've given you some ideas in what we talked about just then. So over to you guys. Let's have some different voices. There's no wrong answers, but it's really helpful to have your perspective.
Relationships outside of work.
Yes, that's a really good one. That's not on my list. Absolutely. If you're injured at work and you can no longer run around, then that's going to impact on your family life, your home life. If you're emotionally under pressure or you've got mental health problems, that can absolutely have an impact on relationships outside of work. Thank you.
Physically unable to do anything else if you get injured.
Yeah, absolutely. If we're injured at work, or if we've got ailments at work, that can impact on your ability to function at home as well as at work. And if you can't, we all go to work for a reason. We go to work so that we can earn money and pay the bills and live a life. And if that source of income is lost, then that could potentially be catastrophic. So what things can impact on our health and well-being when we're at work? Well, an untidy site, that's obvious, and I know that that's something that's very relevant to you day to day. It's easier to walk onto a site that's orderly and clean. It makes everybody feel better physically and mentally because you know that it's organised and you feel naturally safe. When it's untidy, you might not realise it, but your body, your central nervous system is assessing risk, and that takes effort. So you want to go to work to do your job, but you're in the process of, assessing all the risk around you to enable you to do your job safely. So the site and how that presents for you is a big impact on your day. Taking unnecessary risk or not thinking about what you're doing, and just looking at this image here, you can see that, and we're probably all a little bit guilty of this, where you might be under pressure to complete and you take a shortcut, and most of the time you get away with it, but there could be some times when that shortcut could be life-changing. This is another image example of that kind of just stopping and thinking and planning. So you could just imagine what potentially could go wrong with that image. So the planning is really important. That's your planning day to day, but also the planning of the overall project. We are one cog in a big project wheel, and our plans can be impacted by the bigger project plan. And if there's issues across both elements, then that can lead to accident or injury or stress. Ineffective risk assessment. So every element, our risk assessment as electrical subcontractors has to protect us, but also has to protect the plumbers and vice versa. So every subcontractor or contractor that you work with has got their own risk assessment, but it has to consider how it interacts with those around them. And then complacency. We've all perhaps worked alongside or near people that just have a poor attitude, in that they either take risk, or they're complacent, or they just don't consider other people. That has a direct impact on each other. So our attitude as an individual can impact on the next person's attitude. So we need to own the attitude we bring to work and manage that. So why do we consider health and well-being? So this is for a number of reasons. Primarily, when you come to work, every individual that goes to work has a right to work in a safe environment and go home injury-free. So that's ultimately why we consider health and well-being. But it has an impact. It has an impact on the individuals, and it has an impact on industry. So over 2 million working days are lost each year in the construction sector because of health and well-being issues. We need to future-proof quality of life of individuals and those that work around us. We want to prevent accidents and injury, and we want to protect our income. We want to be able to, as I've said, go to work, earn our living, and go home and enjoy spending it. That's what we're all motivated by. So we need to protect the income of individuals, but also of the industry, so that we can continue to thrive and employ people. So it all interlinks. So I'm going to come to you here, because this should be at the forefront of your mind. What control measures are you aware of?
Practicing manual handling.
Yeah, manual handling.
Yeah, manual handling.
So you can read the literature around manual handling, and then you go to work and you have to work out a practical solution, and that takes thought and effort. There'll be day-to-day things that you do that you'll be well practiced at, but then there's always those tasks or projects where you have to take what you've learned from a book and apply it to the real life, and that takes a bit of thought. So absolutely, manual handling. What else?
Masks, dust masks.
Yeah, absolutely. Masks, really important part of what we do to protect our lungs.
Letting stress control your day.
Yeah, some stress management.
Following site safety.
Absolutely. So site safety, and that covers loads of things. So as soon as you walk onto site, and the first thing you do is participate in a control measure. You get out your car and you walk into the site office, you sign a register, that's a control measure. You walk into the changing area, you put your PPEs on, that's a control measure. These are all control measures that are really important, and you do them day to day. So you can see we've got PPEs on the screen, we've got face fit testing, we've got symptoms of hand-arm vibration syndrome. Now that represents our annual screening and our toolbox talk training. We've then got toolbox talks. So conversations like this are part of a control measure to make sure that you are safe and well at work. Site visits, and I get it, no one likes a site visit. No one wants someone coming around having a look at what you've been doing, but they're an essential part of making sure that you are safe at work. And those site visits are your opportunity to say, look, this site's untidy, these are the issues I'm having, and that will get dealt with. So they're really important part of what we do. And then, you know, I'm going to say it, audits. So if we're not making sure our equipment is safe, such as our step ladders, then you are injured, then as a company, and as you as employees working together with us, then we're not fulfilling our requirement to make sure that we keep the equipment we have you working with is safe and usable. So the audit's an important part of the control measures as well. So what precautions do you need to take? Well, day to day, you are the custodian of your health and well-being. So if you believe you have concerns about your health and well-being, or there's issues that you need to talk about, then please do speak to your supervisor, and anyone is welcome to ring me and speak to me. If you don't want to speak to anyone at work, then go to your GP and seek help. If you see a practical problem at work, sort it. Don't be that person that walks away. You can't fix everything. I understand that. I'm not saying that you have to walk around site and tidy it up every time you come to work. But as a practical example, if you see a spillage or a trip hazard, do something about that, whether that's alert other people by getting a cone or some kind of, I don't know what you have on site actually, just so you can identify it and then tell the site manager to deal with it. Nobody, you know, if you spot you may spot a risk or a hazard and walk past it, but the next person may be the one that trips and has a life-changing fall as a result. We have really good engagement with our risk assessments and our audits, but keep that up. This is not a tick box exercise. Sometimes it feels like that, but it is a very real consideration for us. You might, you know, we do talk to you about that. We make the RAMs available. We share our audit findings with our contractors. That's one of our contractual obligations. But we also look at each site and consider the risks and mitigate against that if needed. Know your health and safety and apply it. We can tell you everything there is to know about health and safety, but if you ignore it and you don't apply it, then that's part of, you know, that's one link in the chain that when it's broken may lead to an accident or injury. If you do have any concerns about health and safety, raise it and know that we will take that seriously and we will take steps to make sure that within our sphere of control, change will happen. But remember, we have limitations as well. And if you have a suggestion, then please share it, because if it's workable, we'll definitely do it. Understanding stress, well, you've mentioned this because you already know your environment. The construction industry is a jungle, and it's driven by some very dominant central nervous systems that like to be at the top of the pecking order. That in itself can be a stress-inducing environment. Remember, stress isn't something you consciously have. This happens subconsciously. You don't even know you're having a stress response. And when people are baring their teeth, so to speak, or raising their voice, or speaking in an uncivil way to you, that will elicit a hormonal response in your body. So if you know, often people, if you say, oh, it sounds like you've got a bit of stress. No, I'm not stressed. And that might be the case. However, if you're exposed to confrontational communication styles, for example, your body will have a hormonal response. It will release adrenaline, it will prepare you for fight, flight, or freeze, and your heart and lungs will change as a result. You will release cortisol, which is your fear response, and all these things can impact on your cognitive function. That's your thought processes. And we know that that can then affect decision making, and that's when accidents can happen. Now, we can't change the environment that we're in, but we can change how we react to it. So my advice to you is don't join the fight. Speak to people, learn strategies. Every environment's got a stress element to it. We can't erase that. But it takes two people to fight. So if someone's shouting at you, that's where you pause and let them get it off their chest. Know the scope of your role and escalate as needed. So if you're in a situation at work where the demands of the project are unrealistic, then you need to speak to Warren about that. That needs to be, or your supervisor, depending on who you're working with and where you are in your career. Leave work in civility at work. If most people, 99% of people come to work to do a good job, but they just get stressed and sometimes it bubbles over. We're all human. So if someone's had a snap at you, then leave that at work. When you sign out at the end of your day, that's where you leave the incivility that you might have experienced, and you go home and get on with your evening. You can't control other people's behaviours, but you can control how you respond to it. So please consider that when it is challenging on site. And I'll leave you with a quote that has been a guide for me for the most of my career, which is, if you don't like something, change it. And if you can't change it, change the way you think about it. Sometimes we can fix one, or people can fixate on an issue that you have no control over. And that is a stress element in your life that you can't change. So look away from it, move away from it. And to put things in place that keep you safe and healthy at work. Okay, so that brings us to the end of our toolbox talk.